Isaiah 26 verse 3 promises that God will keep us in perfect peace, those whose minds are constantly stayed on Him and steadfastly focused on God. And it specifically says, you will keep in perfect peace and constant peace the one whose mind is steadfast, that is committed and focused on you in both inclination and character, because he trusts and he takes refuge in you with hope and confident expectation. And that reminds me of when the apostles were on the boat, when it was Peter and it was the other apostles, and they were on the boat, Jesus's disciples, and they were rowing to get to the other side, but it was in the middle of a storm. So they were rowing, but they weren't making any sort of leeway whatsoever. They essentially were staying in the very same place for quite a few hours. And they had left Jesus back on land, and Jesus decided he was finally going to catch up with them, because he stayed back to pray, to spend time with his Father in prayer, and he retreated in solitude as he commonly does. And he began to walk on water to catch up with his disciples. And the disciples became frightened when they saw this figure emerging through the storm, walking on the water. They were like, oh my gosh, it's a ghost. They were terrified. And Peter, in all of his boldness, said, Lord, if it is you, then bid me to come out on the water and walk on the water to you. And Jesus told him to come. And in that moment, it reminds me of the scripture. It makes me believe that Peter was in perfect peace in that moment, because his eyes were focused, fixated, locked in on Jesus and getting to him. And I'm sure it was terrifying. He was about to walk on water. He was walking on water. He was standing on top of the water. No one had ever done this before, aside from Jesus, who he sees before him doing it. And it encourages me to keep my eyes stayed on Jesus, because just as Peter, the disciple, the moment he took his eyes off of Jesus, he began to sink. I find in my life that the moment I take my eyes off of Jesus, I begin to sink. I begin to fall into despair, and I begin to fall. But that's all right. We fall down, but then it's time for us to pick ourselves back up. So I pray that we all have the boldness to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, because then we can do the impossible.